Hi guys, this is Shannon from Reptile Way and welcome back to our channel. Today we have an exciting new video all about blue tongue lizard morphs. Now this is a bit of a collaboration video as Corey from Reptile Addiction was kind enough to allow me to film his collection and as well give me a lot of information with regards to blue tongue lizard morphs. So let's dive into this video. We're going to start off with how did blue tongue lizard morphs come to be? In Australia, we are lucky enough to have blue tongue lizards throughout a large proportion of the country. This means there are a lot of wild populations with quite a lot of genetic diversity. So every now and again, someone finds a genetic marvel. So for example, in the early 2000s, there was an albino eastern blue tongue lizard found in the wild. Now, odd-looking reptiles, such as this albino one that stand out, will often be removed from the wild due to a high risk of predation, especially from our invasive animals such as cats, dogs, foxes. And they will be taken to places like zoos or parks where they are more than likely to become part of important breeding projects. Therefore, the wild albino blue tongue lizard was handed into the Australian Reptile Park. It then found its way into the offshoot business Snake Ranch, where I think it may have become part of breeding projects as eventually it did find its way into the hobby once Snake Ranch started selling these albino blue tongue lizards. Now there may have been additional wild albino blue tongue lizards found out in the wild, and then they were also handed into the Australian Reptile Park and then made their way to Snake Ranch, but I can't really confirm this. I'm just going off accounts of what certain people are saying. But from my phone interview with Roger Kramar from Bluetonguemorphs, he recounted the following story. Now he said there was a fella in Newcastle who actually came across a few albino lizards in his backyard. I think he said there was about 3 or 4 of them. Now this fella did have dogs at the time and he was concerned that his dogs would injure, I guess, these cool looking lizards. So his first point of call was the Australian Reptile Park. So apparently he took them there, and then I don't know if they were a part of breeding projects also. Anyway, it doesn't really, I guess, matter about the number. There was an albino blue tongue lizard that eventually found its way to the Snake Ranch. It was bred, the individuals were eventually sold, and this gave birth to the blue tongue morph hobby. Now, not too long after this, there was another startling discovery made. There was a jet black blue tongue lizard, otherwise today known as a hypermelanistic, found out in the wild near Bondi, Sydney by Professor Rick Shine. And it was caught, and again it eventually found its way to Snake Ranch, where Snake Ranch again put it through their breeding projects and introduced it into the hobby. This is supposedly the only one that was ever found out in the wild. And so they do think that all hypermelanistics today are descendants from that one female that was found out in the wild. Now we can't forget about how the third type of blue tongue lizard morph came to be out in the wild. And this one was actually found up in Darwin, and it was the white northern. And it was brought to us by John Robert Coward. And this is an absolutely stunning lizard. Now I envy the person who stumbled upon that fella. That would have been such an amazing sight and a bit of a head scratcher trying to figure out what the hell that is. As you can see, morphs can come to be naturally out in the wild, and this is still happening today. So check out some of these articles I found online, and again, it is incredible to still be making these discoveries. Another way for morphs to be created is through the tireless efforts of breeders across Australia, otherwise known as morph creators or developers. Now they may spend years or even tens of years trying to match up the perfect blueies in order to create something new and truly spectacular. Joe Ball from bluetonguelizards.com.au was working on the line of Kimberley locality blue tongue lizards. He had a normal wild type pairing. Now from this pairing, he found some of the clutch had quite a unique appearance. They contain mainly black and white and were void of certain colours like reds, orange and most yellows. But the most striking characteristic of the black-eyed anery, you guessed it, is those jet black eyes. Then there was another line of black-eyed aneries found in the Darwin locality blue-tongue lizards and had been proven out by Beck Drescher to be recessive. So let's check out the huge variety of morphs. Now keep in mind, this may not be all the morphs we currently have, as there are more that are currently being made and are yet to be named. But we've tried to give a good representation and are only including the ones that we can verify with the current information present to us today. Therefore, we have focused our attention on the morphs being created in Australia, and we are really drawing a lot of our information from, I guess, the two pioneers in the field, Joe Ball and Roger Kramar. Now, according to Joe Ball from bluetonguelizards.com.au, there are 8 base morphs in skincoides. So you've got the albino, hypermelanistic, white northern, anery, T+, patternless, patchwork, and the more recent one, the white-sided. Now, according to Roger Kramar from Bluetonguemorphs, he's leaning more towards that there are 5 base morphs. So you've got the albino, hypermelanistic, and he doesn't refer to these guys as white northerns, instead he calls them super hypos, and he's got his valid reasons for that. I'm not going to delve into that in this video, so apologies Roger, I just don't have enough time. Then we've also got the anery and the white-sided. So whichever sort of one you're going to go with, from these base morphs, a bunch of combinations, creations can be made. Now, arising from these base morphs, you can create so many combinations, and the list really is endless. Now we're going to run through a few examples that do have quite a reliable backing of them actually being morphs. Now I'm not going to go through how each particular morph is different, otherwise I think this video would be extremely long, but how you can tell some differences is through eye colour, tongue colour, skin colour, and also the pattern on them as well. The alabaster, the snow, we've got the lava, the platinum, the mercury, blackout, T+ white, moon glow, caramel ice, sun-kissed, calypso, sun glow, and again, there's probably a lot more than that. So apologies to some people out there if you're like, wait, I've created this one and it's not in your video. So sorry. This video will eventually become outdated quite quickly with how quick the blue tongue lizard morph world is moving. Now, for you to get a better understanding of the variety of blue tongue lizards we actually have today, check out these Facebook pages, follow them. They're pretty much releasing daily content and updates in their breeding projects, what new morphs are coming out, and also check out their websites. Now, if you want to understand blue tongue lizard morphs, a basic understanding of genetics is needed. Now, don't squirm. I'm not going to make it too hard to bear. We're just going to dip our toe into the genetic waters. But before we dive headfirst into this topic, I'm just going to put up a few important terms with their definitions on the screen. So feel free, you can pause it here, have a good read of it, and yeah, we'll get straight into it. So we're going to use the following as an example. So imagine it's late in September. You've got a seemingly normal looking male, otherwise known as a wild type, in search of a female to mate with. He comes across this wild type female and decides she is the one. They end up mating, and months later she gives birth. However, about a quarter of these babies are albino. How can this be? Now, to illustrate how these albino babies came to be from seemingly two normal looking parents, we're going to be using a Punnett square. Now, the gene combinations you will see from both the parents are the following. Now, the capital A in these combinations signifies a dominant gene, which in this case is a wild type, otherwise known as a normal looking blue tongue lizard. A lowercase a signifies a recessive gene. So in this example, it is the trait of albinism. So if we put these two parent blue tongue lizards on a Punnett square, this pairing is called a head-to-head pairing because each parent has a dominant wild type gene and a recessive albino gene. Let's fill in the Punnett square and find out what the offspring will look like. So 25% of the offspring will carry two copies of the dominant wild type gene and are referred to as homozygous dominant and will therefore look normal, so they're a wild type. Whereas 25% here and 25% here, otherwise 50% of the offspring, will carry a copy of the dominant wild type gene and a copy of the recessive gene, which is the albino gene. They are therefore referred to as heterozygous or hets, and therefore will be wild type in appearance or just normal looking. Lastly, 25% of the clutch will carry two copies of the recessive albino gene and will therefore display that trait. This is termed homozygous recessive. So as you can see, 25% of these guys are albino. So this therefore explains how from seemingly normal looking parents, albino babies can be produced. Now, this was just a basic introduction to genetics. If you would like to learn more, I highly recommend checking out Joe Bull's genetics masterclass, which can be found on the Blue Tongue TV YouTube channel. So yeah, definitely check that out. Now, I also had an awesome phone interview with Roger Kramar, and he was kind enough to give me like 3 hours of his time. We were just talking about our passions about reptiles, so it was a really, really fun conversation, and I learnt so much. So apologies, Roger, I just do not have the time in this video to include the wealth of knowledge you shared with me. But there are a few little audio clips that I do want to share with you guys. And this first one is sort of how his business, Bluetonguemorphs, came to be.
So when the blue tongues came along, we only had wild types at the time,
Yep.
And we're hoping, oh geez, I hope, you know, something different. So you're basically just line breeding them.
Yep.
And then Snake Ranch were donated hypermelanistic blue tongues, and they also had donations of an albino blue tongue.
Yeah.
They later on had 4 or 5 more. They then bred them and released them to the industry. So we naturally got on board, and that's where it all started from. We had something to work on.
Now I can tell you from that phone call, Roger is still as passionate about reptiles as what he was 20 odd years ago. And that's so cool to see. It's awesome to see when people are in a particular industry and they still love it as much as the day they started. Now I also asked Roger to recount the moment when the platinum was created, and I have to include this audio clip of him describing it. And the reason why was it was not what I was expecting. You know, if you've seen the platinum, it is a totally gorgeous blue tongue lizard. But from this audio clip and I guess Roger's account of how this particular morph came to be, it just shows you can never really predict what you're gonna get.
Well, this is crazy when I say this, it was very disappointing.
Yeah.
But as much as it was disappointing, it was also proved out that both the hypermelanistic and the white morph are co-dominant rather than just simple recessive.
Yeah.
Because I was hoping to produce something that looked like, and I actually had the name Orca for it, you know, the killer whale.
Yeah.
Because if they were just simple recessive, you would have had an animal that's white and black patterned all over, but because they're co-dominant, as you probably remember in our biology days when they did the red and the white carnation, they produced a pink because they're both co-dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what happened to the platinum.
So it wasn't what you expected at all. You were hoping for like almost like a killer whale type pattern, and you got the platinum.
Exactly.
So again, a big thanks to Roger for helping me out with this video, and again giving me your time to have that lengthy chat. And again, if you're in Roger's local area, he'll have babies. Generally, I think he said his babies were being born around early to mid to late December, early January. So he does his a little bit later. So you can potentially get babies in the new year. So definitely hit him up if you would like a gorgeous, stunning blue-tongue morph as well. To finish this video up, you can really see it's not just a clear-cut case when it comes to blue-tongue morphs. It's not so black and white, there's a lot of grey area. Now the reason why this is there's no independent regulatory scientific body within Australia that I guess oversees the blue-tongue morph creations, meaning that there's no scientific database that these new morphs can be plugged into and verified. Now in Australia, we do not have genetic testing widely available to all species. However, this is not the case in other parts of the world. As you probably know, in the US, the ball pythons are obviously a big, massive business. Through companies such as Rare Genetics, they're making it possible for people to send in very small skin samples, probably about that big, and they can actually test for what morphs or genetic mutations their ball pythons have. Now, their genetic database isn't yet complete as they're still working through it, but it is getting there. But if you'd like to know more on this topic, definitely check out this video I'm going to put on the screen for you. And they actually talk to the founders of Rare Genetics, and he's actually pretty good at giving his explanation so that everyday person would understand. And also Snake Discovery does have a video themselves on this particular topic, so feel free, you can check that out also. Now before I completely finish off the video, I have to show you some more footage of my time at Reptile Addiction's headquarters with Corey. We had an absolute blast. taking videos, photos of all of his different blue tongue lizards. And we were on a bit of a time crunch as well because a few babies, I'm pretty sure, were getting flown out that week. So I really had to get a wriggle on and do a nice filming session. But here's some of the footage I took whilst I was there.
Let's take it real slow. You know we got what you need, baby. So take it, move along. I said we got what you need, honey. Come and groove along. Come on. Rolling on the highway, heat up. Wow. Come on, and move along. Come on, said babe. I said babe. Oh honey, come and move along. You gotta feel it. Yeah, you gotta move along.
Now, if you're in Australia, especially if you're in Darwin or the NT, get in contact with Corey if you think a blue tongue lizard morph is for you. And I think he still does have a few babies available. Obviously, I'm saying this from when this video is being released. But yeah, get in contact with him. He's really good to have a chat to, explain to you about the morphs also. And he was a real help to me when I was trying to figure out the morph world. It was very confusing because I obviously only knew them coming as normal wild type. I never really looked into colours of blue tongue lizards. Now, I actually ended up with a hypermelanistic blue tongue from Corey from Reptile Addiction, and his animals are in such great condition. He really does care for them. So feel free, send him a message if you're interested. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it opened your eyes up to, I guess, how different blue tongue lizards can look. And for me, this was just an absolute fascinating video because I learnt so much. And also I sort of had to go back to my university days with genetics. But yeah, if you did like the video, feel free, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe if you'd like to be made aware of future content, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.